Welcome to I Am Me podcast. I'm your host, Liz Bachman, and on this podcast, I want to celebrate you for being you. I'm super excited to sit down with my guests each week and talk about their journey, their experiences, and where they came from. So without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to I Am Me. Today I'm sitting down with Sanna Erica. She is actually the first person that I ever took film acting classes from about 6-7 years ago. She is an actor, she is a comedian, she's a filmmaker, she is an amazing person, and I'm super excited to sit down, talk to her today, and see how she's been doing and what she's got going on. So, how you doing, Sanna?
I am well. How are you?
I am good. It's a beautiful fall day, so I can't complain.
Yes, the weather is slowly improving here in Georgia and not as humid.
Yeah, and horrible.
Yeah.
I'm so over the humidity and the heat. But anyway, kind of diving in, because I know you are involved in many different avenues in the creative arts, I would say. But taking it back for a second, where did all this kind of start for you?
Sure. So I started acting, I was like 14 years old. I had done church plays and school plays before that and was very involved in creative arts and stuff. But professionally, I started when I was 14. That was around the time I became a model, and quickly realized the close link. And I don't know why I didn't know this before then, but quickly understood the close link between modeling and acting and how those industries are often pathways into each other. So I started taking acting workshops and booked my first job. Well, my first on-camera job. I don't know that I can call it an acting job, but my first on-camera job when I was 15.
So do you want to dive into what that was? That's really,
sure.
I feel everybody has their first on camera thing, and it's always usually a fun experience. I feel like to look back or think on.
Yeah, actually, so it was really cool. I was in New York City and I had just signed with Elite Model Management, was getting started with them. And they sent me on this job with Bumble and Bumble hair products, which their hair products are just awesome. And they were like, well, we need to cut your hair on camera because we're doing a training video for our institute. So it was like, it was the first time I was ever on a sound stage, on a set. They cut my hair. If you're familiar with like a razor, not like but like it looks like a comb. They had this special method of cutting with a razor that was like they would just pull it through your hair and all the hair would just fall off. It was anyway. I feel like I'm going into detail with this way too much.
No. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So they cut my hair on camera. That was my first on camera job, was an industrial for Bumble and Bumble hair products. And all I had to do was sit there.
Was that intimidating for you as a teenager to show up on set and then know that you're going to have to get your haircut?
Yeah, it was a little intimidating, mainly because I was like, I just need to sit very still and let them do their thing. And then also, I think the modeling industry, at least at the time, to me was a lot more intimidating than Hollywood in a lot of ways. I think working with people that, I went up to New York from North Carolina at the time, and it was just all very, a very different
world.
A different world. Kind of had some culture shock in a way.
I'm curious, did you feel like, because you were 15, maybe you wouldn't have felt it as I would feel like a little star or something. Like 15 years old, you're in high school and you get to go do this studio shoot. Did you feel that way at all? Or?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I felt like hot stuff. And I look back on that, like kind of like, I think on one hand I was, I took it all in stride, but on the other hand, I was like, oh, this is cool and special. And like probably needed to calm down my little ego there. And I did, because acting is really hard and, you have a lot of dead time. And so I learned my lesson real quick. But I definitely felt like, oh, this is awesome,
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in especially speaking from my own experience and being humbled by acting pretty quickly. And then you add on to that you're a teenager,
Yeah.
So, and all the stuff that comes along with teenagers.
Yeah.
So modeling, you don't model anymore. Is that correct?
No, I mean, I've over the years, I've gone back to it a few times. When I lived in LA, I started going to photo shoots, and I got the opportunity to walk in LA Fashion Week, which was super cool. And then I did a few jobs here in Atlanta with an agency I was signed with, a couple of runway shows. And I realized, I think I always was trying, like with modeling, I was always trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. And I always felt, oh, this is something I can totally do. I should do it. And I love fashion photography. I love fashion. So I was like, oh, it's like a clear fit for me. But it always felt not the right path for me. And so I never was able to sustain that career because it just wasn't really my thing.
Yeah. So I think that's any type of performing, and especially now with the way that when I say performing, I mean acting, music, modeling, any type of performing arts where you're getting up in front of people, comedian. I think there's not a clear path in any of it, and there's a lot of crossover. And then today we have so much opportunity to create content on our own and to teach ourselves. So I think if anyone can create content and pursue their stuff and it works for them, then you're doing it right. And everybody's journey and path is just so different in this performing arts, entertainment-esque industry. Because I feel like it is all intertwined.
Right.
So moving from modeling, how did you end up transitioning, I guess, into, I know you had your first industrial, but how did you keep making that transition to going from modeling to acting? I'm sure there was also like modeling and acting were happening at the same time for a period.
Yeah. So, I mean, any opportunity to pursue acting around that time I did. So I took workshops, I learned monologues, I did anything I could to learn. And I was able to, I did like a commercial with a local car dealership. I auditioned for a feature film that ended up not getting made, but I got a part in it. Just whatever I could do to really get my foot in the door. And then I took a break for a few years because it was hard. And I started going to college. I began studying 3D animation and film and ended up changing my major to theater because you couldn't keep me away from acting. And then started working professionally during my last year of school. So that's kind of how that was my path.
Yeah, I got to where you are. Yeah. What was your, I don't want to say resistance isn't a good word. I feel like when you start anything new, there's challenges. So I was going to ask, what were your challenges or areas that you were struggling with as you dove more into learning the craft and art of acting?
Well, I think as far as diving into the craft, I never had, well, I won't say I never had a couple experiences that were not great, but most of my instructors were just wonderful, especially in college. They were just all lovely and just really poured into me in a way that I just really found myself artistically, or began the journey of finding myself. So that was awesome. I think my difficulties regarding acting have always been on the business end of it. You know, talking about culture shock, like kind of the young Hollywood crowd was really, really hard for me to feel like I could fit in with. And just kind of this constant hustle was always really, really hard on me, and kind of balancing my life with that.
I think anyone who is pursuing this for any amount of time starts finding the balance of how do you balance acting and recognizing it's not who you are. It's a thing that you love, that you do, but it isn't all that there is to you, and there's life outside of it.
Yeah.
So do you feel like you have kind of gotten to a place where you balance that now, or you have a better understanding of how to balance it, or maybe you've mastered it, balancing you as Sanna versus you as, an artist?
Yeah. I feel like past Sanna was definitely my identity. And I think to a certain extent, my identity still is, and I'm still working that out. But my identity was so tied up with me being an actor that I didn't really have an interest. And this makes me sound so boring then, but I didn't really have an interest in doing much else. I've always kind of been a very creative person. Like, I really enjoy the arts. I enjoy going to art museums and painting, and I have a sewing machine, knitting and making stuff, and I think there was a time in my life when all of that other stuff just died or went to sleep. And I think the last few years have been kind of this experience of rediscovering kind of the multifaceted nature of my personality and like how I love to do all these things, and that's okay. And I don't know if it's just kind of this hustle culture mentality or capitalism or what, but I there was a time in my life where I just felt like all I needed to be doing was focusing on acting.
That eat, sleep, breathe mentality.
Yeah. And I know now that's not healthy for me. And I like to cook, and I like to try fine wines, and I love to watch horror movies for fun. And I love, I don't know, just all the things that make me me. I think I'm still working on it because there is kind of still that mental place that I go to where I'm like, I'm not right unless I am an actor. But if that makes sense. But I've come a long way.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because I think, one, I completely relate to you, like fell into the same mindset trap. And I feel like I'm just now starting to figure out, hence me doing this podcast and other creative pursuits that I've wanted to do, but felt like I shouldn't because I need to just pursue acting and solely acting. And I think also just a lot of people can relate to that, because I do agree that the hustle culture mentality affects not just actors, but when we're talking about actors. So that's why I said the eat, sleep, and breathe. Like, I will only have success at this if it's all that I'm doing. And it's just not healthy. It's not a good balance in life. Speaking of that, so we talked a little bit actually before we started about how you're starting to shift a little bit and do some different things. So I'm curious, I know when in the beginning, when I introduced you, I talked about filmmaker and comedy. So what are you doing in those avenues now along with acting?
Yeah. So, I'm kind of trying something new. I am working on focusing mostly on my own projects and projects I'm collaborating on with other people. Long story short, I've worked on the day job side, I've worked in digital marketing for probably the past decade in social media. I also do video production, and all about that, Liz, because you used to work with me. And I work for a wonderful organization now full time, and really excited about that side of my career and really excited about the work I'm doing for them and with them. So I've kind of decided to make a shift and focus more on my own projects. I'm currently, I'm looking over here to my right because there is a pile of scripts over there. I'm directing a show with Sketchworks Comedy that was kind of my brainchild. So I'm very excited about it, and collaborated with a bunch of writers it functions as a sketch comedy show a la SNL, but has a through line.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm very excited. We had a table read last week for it, and we have our first rehearsal Tuesday. So that's my first big project that I'm working on. And then after that, I'm kind of giving myself a breather to kind of figure out what I want to do and what I want to invest my time in. I'm definitely one of those people. I want to do everything. I'm like, oh, I have this idea for a documentary, but there's only 24 hours in the day. So I'm trying to focus on what projects I want to pursue. So after I do this, we'll see what's next. But I also create content on my TikTok page, and
I love your TikTok page.
Oh, thank you.
I feel like it's so slept on. I'm like, how do you not have like 1 million followers at this point? I love your content. I was like, I need to see if Sanna would want to be interviewed, because I was scrolling through TikTok and you came up and I went to your page and I just like rewatched all the stuff. So I think you are very funny and your timing is very good. And I like the concepts that you come up. Your Costco concept is great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, or Costco.
Yeah. That character is so much fun to play.
Yeah. And I'll always look at the comments. I feel like so many people look in comments on TikTok, but the people who are often have commented on those videos that you're a great actor because you're making me mad. I'm like, it's so true.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, no, I love it. So with that, I am sure that your comedy show or the sketch show is going to be great. Are you going to be in it or are you just directing it?
No, I'm as far as I know, I'm not going to be in it. I may, cause I've been kind of doing some stand-up comedy. So I may do a couple minutes of that at the top of the show. But as far as acting in it, I'm not.
Now, have you ever directed anything before? Not film or TV, but anything that's going to be on stage, or is this like a directorial debut for you?
Yeah. So prior to this, I directed a show back in March. That was a sketch comedy show. And then prior to that, I've directed a lot of kids sketch comedy shows because I've worked with Sketchworks with their kids camps, and we do fully produced sketch comedy shows for these kids, and then also some student showcases. But I think this is probably the most multi-layered and complex show I have directed to date. So yeah, so looking forward to it. There's lots of moving pieces. We actually have to film some content for it next weekend, but I'm excited. I'm really excited about it.
I'm really happy for you. When is it?
So it's
I want to see it.
Oh yeah, you should totally come see it. I'll
I'm interested.
Yeah, okay, I'll put you on the list. It's the first 2 weekends of November. So I believe it's the 3rd, 4th, 10th, and 11th. And it will be at the Warehouse, which is Frat Pack Productions. It's near Avondale Estates, Decatur in Scottsdale. Okay. So yeah, so I want to invite everyone who's in greater Atlanta or Georgia to come see it.
So I definitely will plug you. I'll plug you on my socials when I release this episode, and I'll plug you on my personal for sure too. That's super exciting. And I definitely want to come and see it because that sounds so fun. And then so just transitioning a little bit, what I hold you in very high regard. I consider you still a mentor, in a lot of ways. I know we haven't talked to each other in the last few years. Have been crazy, pandemic, all that jazz, but I really respect you, and I always learned a lot from you. And then I interned with you a little bit. So, I'm kind of curious what your advice would be to people who not only maybe want to get in the acting industry or into acting, but also just content creation in general in any form, because I feel like you have such a good handle on that in terms of how you go after it. And you're really not afraid to pursue your creative visions. At least that's what I've always observed.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Liz. And FYI, I hold you in very high regard as well. Like, I think you're just awesome. And yeah, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you these past few years and working with you. And by the way, Liz was like my right-hand woman in film shoots or video shoots. Like she automatically knew everything to do. Do what?
The bounce. I handled that bounce perfectly.
The bounce
the
card?
Reflector. Yeah. Or the reflector. That was I always had that.
No, but I always remember I would come like back in from like filming or whatever, and like all my equipment would be packed up, ready to go. She'd be like, "Can I have your car keys? I'm going to go put it," like, I don't know. Just great. Anyway, so yeah, I would sing your praises all day.
Aw, thank you.
Content creation and acting. Okay, so I think as far as content creation, I personally think it's really good to have a plan. And I know that probably goes without saying, but I think sometimes a lot of content creation on the internet, when we watch it, we think, oh, wow, this is so like off the cuff. Like this was just, this is so natural. They just made this. But no, like, I think even content creation, with exceptions, that appears to be off the cuff, has gone through writing and probably rewriting and then more rewriting. So having some sort of written plan and having it in your mind, you know, and if you're someone who's gone to film school or taken film classes, this is probably already part of you, but having it in your mind as to how that's supposed to look at the end of the day, like down to the shots, down to angles, everything, so that you can kind of plan it out from beginning to end. And the other thing is, you know, if you are really wanting to get into it, just start doing it, because the best teacher is you trying things out And my failures in the past, and I'm still failing all the time, and I'm not a successful content creator. I would love to be. That would be awesome. But I mean, okay, I take that back. I think I've had successes, but I'm not like a full-time content creator, with like millions of followers. So the best way you can learn is just to start creating. And if you're afraid of people seeing it, that's fine. Just make it private and just work on it, and keep it private or keep it friends only. But really, that's the best way you're going to learn. I've made so many crappy videos like in my life, but I've learned from them, and I've learned from the process of making them and trying out new techniques and trying out new animation styles, trying out new editing programs, whatever I need to do.
So with your content creation, have you at all experienced like getting wrapped up in views or likes? Because I feel like a lot of people, I know I can get wrapped up in that when I put stuff out. Or do you feel like you've got to a point where you enjoy the content you're creating and you're happy with who sees it? Or does that still mess with your psyche at all?
I mean, it definitely does. I have learned to look for two things, though. A, me liking it, and then B, likes and engagement. And and there have been a few times that I was like, I love this video. I think it's great. And then it's like, doesn't do very well at all. And I'm like, what? Why? So yeah, and it does mess with me sometimes, because sometimes, you create something and you're like, oh, it's gonna reach so many people. People are gonna love this. And then it's like humbling, and it doesn't. And I experienced that in my other professional life as well, like my other career life in digital marketing, where, I'll prepare a post and I'm just like, oh, this is gonna be awesome. And, and then it's like womp womp, and really the content is great. It's just people don't take the time, or I don't know what it is, but, I think that's the danger with social media, is sometimes big concepts, or maybe not even big concepts. Maybe I'm giving myself too much credit, but content that I think is overall good can be not find its audience, or not, is kind of subject to the algorithm and where it's being pushed. So.
Yeah, I think that part's frustrating too. A lot of the content we're seeing online, there is forethought that's gone into it. People aren't I mean, like you said, there are some people who, they pull out their phone and whatever, it works out for them. But a lot of the, especially creative content that you're seeing on TikTok, Instagram Reel, YouTube Shorts, whatever you're watching, there's a lot of forethought and scripts and stuff like that that goes into it. People don't just whip out their phone and shoot something randomly off the cuff. And so I think it is hard when you put that much thought and time and energy into it to then make the video, be happy with how it came out, and not maybe get the views that you want on it. It messes with me, but I try to remind myself, like, even if I get 1 or 2 likes, I'm like, okay, at least that somebody enjoyed it. Like, somebody got something out of it, and try to remind myself that, and to be grateful for that too. But
and I'd rather it go viral in the right way than go viral in the wrong way. So,
that's true. Very good point.
Yeah. I'm thankful for those, the likes that are sincere and the comments that are sincere, even if there's just a few of them, because at least it's resonated with someone. And, like, I think, people have told me before, they're like, oh, like people in my life, they're like, I really loved that video. And I'm like thinking, oh, well, that got like 500 views, like that, but there are people who really enjoyed it, and I think at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to entertain, educate, and inspire, I guess. So
I think it too, I've always thought about it, and I would rather have a community of a smaller group of people than say have millions of people, but there's not really any connection amongst you and the people who are consuming your content. Because I like the connection. I think that's kind of the point, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what would your advice be towards somebody who wants to get into acting?
Yeah, so really focus your first few years on learning. I wish I didn't have stars in my eyes like I did when I started, because I was just so ready to be auditioning, and I did throughout the years, even while I was still learning. But I think if I could have done it all over again, I would have just focused more on the learning process and not split my time so much. Really get in a class that nurtures you, that is respectful toward you, and start doing student films, So like, you probably have a university in your area with a film program, and those film students, and Liz knows all about this, those film students need actors. Yeah. So do whatever you can to get in contact with them. So they might put their casting notices, on a big site like Actors Access, but they might also just keep a register of actors in their system that they can assign parts to. So really, like, when you are on those small film sets, you're going to learn how to perform on film. And also, I would recommend, even if you don't want theater to be your thing, go do plays. Again, like, most places have a community theater. Most places have some sort of, like, if you're in a church you really like and they do church plays, if you are still in school, if you're in high school, get involved with your drama department, because really, when you're on stage, like, there's no feeling like that. It's like the most rewarding feeling, so much more rewarding feeling than film, in my opinion.
I'd agree with you.
Yeah. Also, you just learn so much being right there in the moment with the other actors, and you learn so much about reacting authentically and organically. So you get to put a lot of that training into practice. And like, I think what's cool about like community theaters is they do a lot of plays by like great playwrights that you have the opportunity to perform these like famous plays. Anyway, yeah, I would start there, and then from there, you can start to pursue the other things you need to pursue, like building your resume and building a reel, because you can get footage from the films sets you've been on, and start pursuing professional work. Yeah. And then be open to making your own content as well.
That's all really great advice, because it takes time, like anything else. I consider it an illusion of overnight success, which I feel like when I started, I just thought, within a couple years, I'll be on primetime television or whatever. And that quickly, like I said earlier, being humbled. And I think recognizing the journey of it, and if you really fall in love with this art form, I enjoy my classes as much as booking the part, I would say, because sometimes that might sound horrible, sometimes even more, because you build a community with your classmates, and you're just in this beautiful little actor bubble.
Yeah.
When you're with your classmates, which is just so nice, because it's just not like that on set. And set's its own beautiful beast, I would say, but it is cool. Actors just get other actors.
Yeah. And I think finding a community, like something key you kind of basically mentioned there, is like finding a community of people who you can, hang out with and grow with. I perform and direct and teach with Sketchworks Comedy here in Atlanta, hence the show I mentioned earlier. And really, those people are like my best friends. We went to New York and we performed like a month ago. We did Vape in New York, which is that's his own story. I don't know if you've heard about that, Liz, but so Vape was our parody of Grease that we got caught up in legal proceedings for a couple of years to like fight for the right to perform it. We sued Grease and we won in federal court. Yeah, so it was really cool. And we finally, we got to perform it last year in Atlanta, and then finally got to do it in New York. So anyway, but bring that up because like I was with all my friends and it was like this really fun trip and we were all hanging out. And we did 3 shows, but we really like that experience lives in my heart. Also for the reason that I got to be with my close friends, and do this really cool thing with them. So I think finding a community cannot be understated, because again, it was like one of those things like when I was younger, that it was like, oh, friends can wait. I'm hustling, but really, what is life about? It's about relationships with other people. And you're going to love working with the people who you love. Finding a community is, I think, really important.
I agree with it. I feel like I'm really learning that now, finding my people and really investing in them, because if you feel empty before you book or whatever, it's not going to matter how big the role you book is. That win will last for like 20 minutes. And it just doesn't matter without the community aspect, like what you said, what's life all about? And the people and connection is what makes this so great.
Yeah.
What for you has been, it sounds like that was definitely a highlight going to New York and doing this production, this play with your cohorts essentially. So what are your biggest highlights that you can think on? Because how many years have you been doing this? You started when you were like 14.
So like over 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Can you think of a couple examples that just were big moments in your career for you?
Yeah. So I don't know how many names I'm permitted to mention because of the strike right now, but I can kind of give roundabout answers.
You don't have to give us name drop or anything like that, because I know I don't want to get anybody in trouble on here.
So there was a show I did when I lived in LA that I shot for 3 weeks, and it was like my first big job. That was like a really cool experience. It was definitely a culture shock experience as far as entering the Hollywood world. That was really, really neat. And to be able to view the fandoms after that kind of formulated around or formed around the show, that was really neat. And I did a feature that I shot in Savannah, which was a really fun experience because of the freedom us actors were given to improvise in that scene and just kind of make it our own. I had a really good experience working on a feature in 2021 that was just like a wild experience. And I worked on it for 3 weeks, and I had never worked on a film of that scale. So that was really cool. And then I think outside of those, probably my favorite experiences have been my own projects, just because of the creative freedom I have. Not because I think they're the best projects, but because really fun to create and to make them. And then also all the stuff I've done with Sketchworks. So I just got back from New York with Sketchworks this time, but I went 2 other times with them to New York to do sketch shows and perform as part of Sketchfest. And those were always really fun as well. And to be able to just be there with them and do comedy and be silly. And, doing comedy is just like so fun, and just being able to run around on stage and play silly characters. I just love that so much. So
I would say I haven't done any sketch comedy, but improv, I've done some of that, and I love it. It's so much fun. The freedom to be able to improvise within scenes is always so fun. And I love when you're on any type of project where they trust the actors and like let you let go and do that. The closing question I have for you is, you've been doing this for over 20 years now. So how do you feel the energy has changed or transitioned? And do you feel like it's transitioned in more positive ways just throughout the years? Because you've been around to see a lot of different stages of the entertainment industry, I would say. Maybe what do you see coming or think or hope that you want to see in the future?
Yeah, well, I think right now we're in this moment of intense change. I think a lot of it we have been needing for a long time. I have to recommend a book. It's called Burn It Down. Have you read that?
I haven't, no, but just the title got me a little excited. So
yeah, I feel like I need to find the author's name so I can appropriately recommend it. Burn It Down is by Maureen Ryan. Power, Complicity, and a Call for Change in Hollywood. So Maureen has written for Vanity Fair for many years. And in the book, she talks about how she's reported on just horrible things that have gone down in Hollywood in the past 20 years or so. And I think that book is a really good representation of the things that need to change, both from a labor standpoint. So like unfair things that we deal with, like working hours and contract terms and residuals and all the things we're fighting for right now, but also how marginalized communities are treated on set and how people of color are treated on set and how women are treated, just all these things, LGBTQ people, and I hope I'm representing this well, but I think that book is a really great place to start if you are curious about what's happening right now and what needs to change. Having said that, I do think there's a general awareness, like a lot of people are waking up to the fact that we can't continue this way. Also, I think something I'd love to see change, and I haven't been the target of this as much as I felt like it was present in the modeling industry, but I know other people have been, and that's just people who are mean, and I really would love to see that change over, I compare that to a lot of the other issues in Hollywood, but really there's a toxic work culture and so many layers of Hollywood. And so I feel like where we are right now is we're going, oh, that's an issue. We need to change this. I don't know that I can speak as someone who is able to spearhead any of that change, but I am a member of Hollywood, I'm a member of SAG-AFTRA, and hope to vote and see those things, vote within my union and see those things change in the future. So
I was just going to say, like, I don't really have anything to add to what you were saying in regards to change and stuff like that. I do think moving towards the future, I too would like to see more of a kindness and an inclusivity, not just amongst actors, but kind of amongst everyone that we are working with on set. But what I was also going to ask you was, what would you say to people who are not in this industry, who are kind of seeing this strike happening and they don't really understand why it matters or why it's so important?
I think we're, at this point, we're fighting for some very fundamental labor rights. And a lot of those issues have come out of the fact that technology is changing. We're scrambling to adapt and adapt in a way that's fair to our members. As far as understanding this strike, I think something that people can do is see it in the terms of like the greater labor market. And several strikes this year, the United Auto Workers, the UPS strike, where people were fighting to keep their trucks under 100 degrees, for air conditioning, just very simple things that you think, like, shouldn't that already be a thing?
Right.
And, Hollywood has gotten a lot of attention. I feel like what Hollywood can do for the greater labor market is bring attention to the greater labor market, if that makes sense. So, people go, oh, the actors and writers are on strike. Like, wow, that's really interesting. That's really cool. Sometimes you have discourse against it, but at the very least, it can draw attention to the fact that all these other industries are also fighting for rights within their workplaces. And we should be paying attention to that as well.
Well, I was going to just say set the tone for, like you said, we're seeing a lot of technology changes that are going to, especially you think of AI and stuff like that, it's going to bleed over into other labor markets. And it has in certain labor markets already. But setting the tone for how that gets to be used,
right?
Kind of, I feel like actors are on the forefront of that, and writers. So I don't know. I think it's easy to look at actors, make snap judgments about us being superficial or whatever, which obviously I don't agree with that. But, people outside looking in, it actually affects people a lot more than they realize, actors being on strike.
Yeah, I think it brings the issue to the forefront in a way that, unfortunately, other industries, people wouldn't pay attention, which we should be. We should be paying attention to when other industries go on strike, because it's important and it affects all of us. But I think at the very least, our contribution, besides what we're fighting for ourselves and the general labor market, is that we can bring attention to labor rights, period.
So kind of finishing on maybe a little bit of a lighter note, do you have a dream role that you want to play?
Oh, gosh. I don't know that I have one dream role anymore, but I would love to be on some sort of political comedy show at some point. And I would love to voice a character on an adult animation show.
I love it.
Yeah. So I definitely used to be like, oh, I would love to play this famous literary character, but I don't think it's that anymore. I think I want to be a part of projects that are smart and doing good work in the world, that are making a positive impact. If we weren't on strike, I would cite several examples right now, but
right.
That's what I can say. So, yeah.
That's really fun, and I like that answer because I don't feel like I have a specific person as much as I have more of a broad thing that I'd want to be in. Yeah, I love that. Well, that's pretty much all I have. Do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing?
Yeah, I think the only thing I can say is if you're in greater Atlanta or the Atlanta area, be sure to check out Sketchworks Comedy the first 2 weekends of November. You can go to sketchworkscomedy.com to buy your tickets for the Dream Cafe experience, which I'm super excited about and is looking like it's going to be a really cool, really weird, and really fun show. So if you like all of that, definitely come check us out.
All right. Well, I definitely will, and hopefully maybe I can bring some friends or something. Thank you so much, Sanna. I had a great time talking to you. Anybody listening, if you can rate, review the podcast, like the Instagram page, I'll also tag Sanna's Instagram when I post this episode. But other than that, thank you guys for listening, and I look forward to talking to you in the next episode.